Well, Mecca itself, and this is really problematic because the problem is just that. What do Muslims tell us about Mecca? And what Muslims tell us is what they get from their traditions and from the Quran itself. Now, interestingly, this book only mentioned it once in chapter 48, verse 24. If it's such an important place, why is it only mentioned once? That's the first problem. But when you go to chapter 7, verse 24 and 26, you look and you see that Adam and Eve are up in space, they're up in the Garden of Eden, and they're thrown down to earth. Now, the traditions tell us that they're thrown down to Mecca. So therefore, it would be the oldest city in the history of mankind. You don't get anything older than Adam and Eve. So it would be around earlier than any other city. In chapter 21 of the Quran, verse 51 to 71, it refers to Abraham rebuilding the Masjid al-Haram, which means the forbidden place of bowing, which all Muslims believe is Mecca. So that means it would have to have existed in 1900 BC. And then, of course, in the traditions, it refers over and over an enormous amount of times as it is the place where the earliest place for mankind. It is where Abraham lived and where he was there rebuilding the Kaaba in 1900 BC. It is the center of trade, north, south, east, and west. It is where all the pilgrims went. Millions of pilgrims went from all over the world to this one place. Now, if that is the case, then someone somewhere should have known about it and said something about it. You would think, right, Peter?
Well, absolutely, yeah. Our kids are learning about it at school, because it goes to way back.
And that's the problem. If it's so well known, if it's so old and been around for so long, why has no one mentioned one word about it until 741 AD? That is the 8th century. That's over 100 years after Muhammad died. How is it we have no reference to the city anywhere? Why is it we cannot find any documentation? Dr. Patricia Corona, who reads and writes 15 languages, she did almost 2 books on this, are just looking and asking the question, why can't we find any reference to the city? And that's the problem. And one of the reasons is just look and see where it's located. It's located in one of the most desolate places on earth. That's probably why. There's just no reference to any historical reference for any group of people who are sophisticated enough to have put together this book and to have put together all the theological precepts that are in this book, which are confronting Jews and Christians in this book, yet there's no Jews and Christians that far south. That's the problem. So I could go on and on about the problems with Mecca, but I think that gives you just a quick eye-shot view of why the problem with Mecca. Now, if the Mecca, we can pretty well stipulate that Mecca did not exist certainly in 570 when Muhammad was born there and lived 52 years there, or when he moved up to Medina in 622. So if Mecca did not exist, then what are you going to do with this book?